Hello and good morning, and thank you for being here with us so bright and early this morning. I'd like to introduce a few folks. The man to my right needs no introduction, our amazing Sheriff of Hillsborough County, Chad Chronister. We also have with us Families Against Fentanyl, Jim Rao, and the Blue Plaid Society Chair, Susie Pereira, both of whom tragically lost children to this fentanyl crisis. This is an important week in preparation for Halloween. We are working hard to get the message out that this could be the scariest Halloween in my lifetime. The sheer volume of fentanyl that now exists within our country and certainly within the state of Florida is alarming and should concern all parents. As you know, we have recently made announcements and been informing parents that we are starting to see fentanyl, as you know, which is one of the deadliest drug DEA has said it's seen in our nation, is now being manufactured to look like candy. It comes in rainbow colors. It can take all shapes and sizes. We're seeing it in pill form. We're seeing it also in ways that could look like sidewalk chalk. We know that it's being transported in candy packaging from Skittles, Sweet Tarts, Whoppers, Reese's, all of the ways that we would never want this type of deadly substance to be manufactured or packaged, because we know that that can attract children. DEA has warned that they believe the cartels are purposefully manufacturing this deadly drug, highly addictive substance, to look like candy and packaging it in candy wrappings in order to attract and addict children. And so as Halloween is approaching, law enforcement and groups that are dedicated to stopping this crisis of fentanyl in our nation are partnering together to warn Floridians and specifically parents as Halloween quickly approaches. As you know, DEA has seized thousands of these pills. Not only do they look like candy, they are often not just packaged in candy wrappers, they are transported in toy boxes. We know that we have seized fentanyl in a Lego box, for example. And so what do we need to do and be on alert for as Halloween approaches? Number one, make sure after your kids trick or treat. I have a kid that is trick-or-treating age. I am with you on this, and I will be doing what I am advising the night of Halloween. Go through your child's candy extremely carefully. I'm not just telling you this. Law enforcement and groups against fentanyl are not just telling you this. The DEA is warning. This year, you have to be vigilant and examine your child's candy very carefully. Now, is the likelihood that a child's going to have fentanyl in their trick-or-treat bag as likely as a child that goes to a party and takes something unwittingly? It's probably a lower probability that it's going to be in a trick-or-treat bag, but we have found in the past illicit substances, highly toxic, dangerous substances in children's Halloween bags. So it is not beyond the realm of possibility. So again, inspect your children's candy very carefully. If you have older age children, middle school, high school, we know that Halloween for them is just as fun for different reasons than the smaller children that like to go trick-or-treating door to door. Many of these older children will go to parties where other kids dress up, and it is in these situations that we are extraordinarily concerned that friends will offer them substances that they have no idea contain fentanyl. Many substances that are illicit, illegal substances, now contain fentanyl. They're laced with fentanyl. Why is that? Because the cartels have figured out that to manufacture fentanyl, which gives an extraordinary high compared to some other drugs, is so much cheaper. So despite the fact that it is more deadly and can kill someone with just 2 milligrams, their profit margin is so high, the risk is worth taking. So what are we seeing them do? Doing everything from addicting children, targeting them through the way it's manufactured and the way they go after children, including on social media, to putting it in other illicit substances that we have seen used in the past where we didn't see as high an overdose rate, but now we do because it's unsuspectingly being laced with fentanyl. So the cartels have no consideration for the safety of your children. Their primary consideration is their profit. And if you look at demand and supply in the narcotics trade, the cost of fentanyl is so low. I heard one law enforcement figure throw out the number 10 cents a pill. It is so low. That is how they make the most money, and we know when it is that low, it means the supply in the United States and in Florida is overwhelming. And that is why this Halloween is the scariest Halloween in my lifetime. So we appreciate you being here today to get the message out to parents in the Tampa Bay area and around Florida. The time to talk to your children is now. Have the conversation. Educate young children if they see anything suspicious in their bag or if anyone gives them something suspicious to tell an adult right away and teach them how to call 911. For your older children, explain to them that children are dying and young adults are dying in record rates because of pills laced with fentanyl. What they believe may be a Xanax or an Adderall, and I could list on and on and on, could be deadly. And that one pill that they never thought could poison them could kill them. So thank you for being here today. I'm going to turn it over to some of the folks that have a lot to say about this. And first we'll hear from our Sheriff, Chad Chronister.
Thank you, General Moody. Thank you for being that visionary, for continuing to be so proactive and preventative. It's your efforts that continue to safeguard our Florida families and our loved ones. I think the General spoke about something that needs to be said again. We have adults, these young adults, that believe it's a time to experiment. The message now, more than ever, is don't experiment because it could cost you your life. What we're seeing with people being poisoned, the poisoning that's happening, the overdose and poison that's happening, aren't coming as much from addicts as it is from first-time users taking an unknowing substance. They believe they're just trying ecstasy for the first time. They believe they're trying a Xanax bar for the first time or something else that's laced with fentanyl, and it's costing them their life. When it comes to Halloween and Halloween safety, we have to be the parents for our young children. Whether it is how the costume fits to make sure that it doesn't continue to be one of the busiest nights in the emergency room. When it comes to driving around and driving our children or telling our children how to be careful crossing the road and doing one side of the street and the other side of the street. They're concerned about one thing. That child is only worried about as much candy as they can get. We have to be the protectors. We as parents have to inspect that candy. Please, if you see something homemade, throw it out. If you see something that's not a brand name, throw it out. It's not worth the risk. Thank you.
Jim.
Thank you very much. Our son Tom died in 2015 of fentanyl poisoning, and since then, hundreds of thousands of Americans have been killed by fentanyl poisoning. It's become the leading cause of death for 18 to 45-year-olds, and it's getting worse. Now little children and toddlers are being found dead. It's a tragedy beyond belief. Fentanyl infiltrated the illegal drug supply. It started with heroin, then coke, then meth, then pills. It went to Xanax, Percocets, Oxycontin, Adderall, and now the dreaded rainbow fentanyl. These fentanyl pills are purposely made to attract children. They resemble Skittles, and they're being packed in candy boxes, as they said. If they found this material coming in at LAX airport, In one shipment, there must be thousands of shipments. They only catch less than 10% of everything that's coming in. And to me, this is a very sound warning. And it may be a warning that they're doing on purpose in order to check our tolerance. Law enforcement just recently stated that fentanyl price for pills has been fallen to the price of 10 cents in bulk in Mexico. That's an amazingly low price that could allow the proliferation of this material to unprecedented numbers. The number one duty of the United States government is to protect its citizenry. And WMD, Weapons of Mass Destruction, gives us the tools in order to do that so we can cut off this dangerous supply. This gives us the ability to protect ourselves, and it forces responsibility and accountability on our United States government to do something that has some real concrete action, that'll do something in order to cut off this supply. This is targeting our children, and it's creating a vacuum in our families. It's creating a tidal wave of grief and depression that's more horrible than anything that could be described. It causes a destruction of family, but then it spreads to the friends, and it spreads to the neighbors, and it spreads all over the place, and it creates a morass of depression that's just terrible. This is stoppable, and it can be stopped by shutting off the supply and leaning on these people that are doing this terrible evil. I pray that we take this seriously, that we look after our children's future and our immediate future. Look at your children's candy this Halloween. It's not beyond some terrorist to put this inside of the candy supply and cause a major problem, or it could be just some fool who decides to kill a few. But either way, this is a danger that we can't tolerate. This is the scariest Halloween that I've ever seen. I don't want the next one to be anywhere like it. Let's take the proper action and put an end to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General Moody and Sheriff Chronister, for having me here today. I am truly honored to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Susie Pereira, and I am the founder of the Blue Plaid Society. We are a 501c3 nonprofit stood up to provide awareness and education about fentanyl poisoning. I created this organization after I lost my son, my only child, Tristan Welsh, just under a year ago. He was 26 years old. Tristan was a handsome, intelligent man. He worked a job that he loved as a print screen technician. He was loved by his family and many, many friends. Tristan was smart and funny. He always helped anyone he could, and he always checked on his friends to make sure they were okay. He loved to cook and grow pepper plants, and he frequently wore blue plaid shirts. That was his style, and that's why we call ourselves the Blue Plaid Society. Although Tristan had a good life, he struggled with mental health and problematic drug use. He tried very hard to overcome these conditions and went voluntarily to recovery. On top of this, he was healing from a traumatic brain injury he acquired from a surprise assault. He was only out of recovery for a month before he relapsed and was killed by fentanyl poisoning. On the morning of November 4th, 2021, I went in to wake my son up for work as I always did. I found him dead on the bedroom floor. No parent should have to go through that trauma. In an instant, my son lost his life, and I also lost mine. For as any bereaved parent knows, you never get over the death of your child. You only learn to carry it. I lost my son, my heir, my family, and my best friend to the drug that is free-flowing over our borders and killing our young people at an astonishing rate. If the drug my son took was not contaminated with fentanyl, he would still be here today. Teens, young adults make mistakes. Many times people take drugs in order to numb themselves from mental pain, depression, and anxiety. Often people can become trapped into the destructive cycle of addiction. But with the introduction of fentanyl and its analogs into the drug supply, people no longer have the luxury to make that mistake. Fentanyl will take down the first-time experimental user, the occasional user, the recreational user, or a person trapped in substance use disorder. All it takes is one mistake, one pill, one line, one shot, one time. That's it. We at the Blue Plaid Society have chosen the skull and crossbones as our logo, as it's a commonly known symbol for poison. Make no mistake, our children and loved ones are being poisoned by the thousands. Fentanyl is being pressed into fake pills and mixed into all street drugs to drive addiction. We invite you to use this symbol as a warning that all types of street drugs, including marijuana, are contaminated with the poison that is fentanyl. As we mentioned, Halloween is on us in a few days. The Blue Plaid Society has developed an informational card that anyone can pull off of our website at blueplaid.org. It can be used as an educational tool to teach others about fentanyl and fake pills. It also has a warning about rainbow fentanyl, which, as we've heard, can be very attractive to young people. Our goal is to not incite panic about trick-or-treating. It's merely to be a reminder to remain vigilant in the protection of your children, as fentanyl is a danger they face every day. For anyone wanting more information about fentanyl poisoning, I encourage you to look us up on blueplaid.org. We have developed a 1-hour course on illicit fentanyl for adults and will soon finish an assembly presentation for high schools and colleges. We would be happy to come to your community, business, church, or civic organization and provide education on the dangers of fentanyl and how to build resilience in your children to protect them from this harm. Lastly, I just want to say, over the course of the year, I've learned something, and it is that you don't have time. You don't have time to not talk to your kids about this deadly drug. You don't have time to keep putting your kids or your adult children back through relapse and recovery. Fentanyl robs you of that opportunity. You don't have time to kick your adult children out of the house in hopes that they'll straighten up, because they probably will just continue to use and they will succumb to fentanyl poisoning. So please take this message seriously. Thank you so much. Thanks.
I know it is extraordinarily hard for Jim and Susie to share their stories again and again, and I know that what that does to you as a parent. We as a community and a state appreciate you being willing to share that again so that other parents don't have to suffer the trauma and the tragedy that your family and so many that loved your children are suffering right now. Susie said it, and she said it well, the time is now. Do not wait. Do not think your children are too young to have this discussion. Even if you've already had it, as Halloween rapidly approaches, have it again. We used to teach during Red Ribbon Week and during drug education classes, this is your brain on drugs, and we would show an egg in a frying pan. If we are dealing with fentanyl and the poison and how it has tragically taken from us so many lives, if you imagine an egg and you think of fentanyl, it is like taking a hammer and smashing the egg. That is your child, your body, on fentanyl. We appreciate you being here. It is Red Ribbon Week, in which we educate Americans and children about the dangers of illicit substances and encourage them to never use drugs. It will harm you mentally. It will harm you physically. Do not use drugs. And thank you for being here, helping us spread the word. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have, or anyone else on the stage would also be willing to do that.
I was just wondering, the fentanyl that was packaged in candy wrappers and boxes, was that a way for them to transport the drugs into the country, or was it a way to target kids? Was it a little bit of both? Just try to get a little bit of clarity there.
So what we try to do is share the information as we see seizures. Obviously, I am not on a conversational basis with cartel leaders and drug lords. If I was, they would be behind bars for the rest of their life. I'm sure this one would help me take care of that. But I will tell you, we try to keep the public informed about what we're seeing, what we're seizing. I will tell you the DEA has said that these things are being manufactured and packaged in a way that they believe are targeting children for addiction. I have no reason to believe there would be any other reason to make these substances look like candy or put them in packaging that looks like candy wrappers. What I can tell you is imagine the worst motivation and the worst agenda with no value for human life, and that would be Mexican drug cartels.
I think that sort of answers the other question that I had, which was that, obviously the cartels are targeting kids. They want to get kids addicted. There were some reports that these, the candy color, the rainbow colored fentanyl was a way to just, I guess, discern one type of fentanyl from another. I think you just sort of answered this, but is your opinion that they are probably more so targeting children?
We know that they are putting fentanyl, which is a poison, which will kill you, into counterfeit pills. We are seeing increasingly large amounts of counterfeit pills in these rainbow colors or in other pill form that we know kids, teens, young adults will give to one another, thinking it's some sort of brand or a substance that will not kill them. I have no doubt that the cartels are trying to purposefully target children at a younger and younger age to get them addicted, which will ensure consistent profits as long as they can see into the future. And put this in perspective, we had the highest overdose rate on record in American history last year. I have no reason to doubt that number will not go up again because of the increasingly large amounts of fentanyl flooding into our nation. In 1 month, we seized enough at the border to kill the whole U.S. population in 1 month, and that's just what was seized and countered. We know some have predicted only 5% is intercepted. It's not just the potency of this drug, it's the potency coupled with the sheer volume that now floods into our state. That, in and of itself, is putting us in a crisis situation where I am extraordinarily concerned for the security of this state and this nation. And I have no doubt that the cartels will not let up as long as their profit margins remain the same. Again, they don't care what the overdose rate is. We know the precursor chemicals are being shipped from China. They're given to the cartels in Mexico that's assembling this deadly poison, and then it's being shuttled into our country. China knows and understands that this is killing our youth and our young adults, and it is the highest killer of our working age population. And how do I know that? Because when we had a diplomatic issue, one of the first things they threatened to do was to cut off communications about fentanyl with the United States. So they know that their actions and their work with the cartels and the cartels' ability to flood it into our nation, that poison which is killing Americans, they know they've killed more Americans using fentanyl and drug cartels than we have in entire wars. I don't see them letting up. In fact, they're using it as a diplomacy tool. It is sad to say, but I now stand before you today as an attorney general with law enforcement and with parents that have lost children and started organizations to try and bring this to light. We are feeling the effects. We understand that this is purposeful. We understand that Americans are being poisoned. And unfortunately, we have to stand before you in front of Halloween, which is one of I think it brings so much joy to so many families around the nation. It's my husband's favorite holiday. He tells me every year. He just loves to watch the kids and especially help our children pick out costumes. And unfortunately, I'm standing here today telling you we have to concern ourselves with an incredibly dangerous and deadly issue. So thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions?
Speaking to the crisis as a whole, has the state made any consideration of possibly making
It's a great question, and yes, Florida has been working hard in a strategic way over the last few years to make sure that we get more Narcan into the hands of first responders, which talk about signing up, taking an oath to be someone that protects your community. Many of these men and women had no idea they would be rushing into situations where they're having to save lives because people are unconscious from fentanyl. Right here in Hillsborough County, deputies and officers rolled up on a convenience store where they had 7 people unconscious and had to respond immediately using Narcan. And I'm glad you brought that up because just last week I announced an initiative, a partnership where Walmart has agreed to dispense over 650,000 kits of Narcan, naloxone around our state directly into the hands of first responders. Additionally, Florida has made sure if you are a caregiver that has routine interaction with someone suffering from an addiction, you can also get naloxone to help save a life. So thank you so much, and we will continue to be thoughtful and purposeful in how we seek about saving lives here in Florida. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.